Um, yeah, so I'm the head men's coach at Salem University. I was going to go over just off-season preparation. There's a number of things you can focus on. A lot of it is having a common theme that both you and your teammates and your players all will have together. Being on the same page is very important. Having a clear plan for what it is you guys want to accomplish in the off season so that you're not just practicing just to practice and waste time. But I'm going to get this slideshow started and I'm going to go through it. So let me pull this up. I'm not the best with technology, so bear with me. Okay. So, with off-season preparation, it's a time to work on things from last season. It's also a time to perfect individual skills and strength, and a time for opportunities that people didn't get in the regular season. Um, so, understanding that these are some of the main focuses for the off season can help you structure and put together what everybody is looking for. So things from the season before, whether you were in the fall and you're in the off season in the spring, or your season was in the spring and your off season in the fall, there's always things from the season that you can focus on and look to improve. So I gave some areas just as some areas you can look to. These aren't all of the areas that you can look to. I could have slides and slides and slides of that. But some of the areas are team defense. Where were the breakdowns? You should have film from the past season, so you should be able to analyze where your defenses break down. Sometimes it could be we're not being efficient in our movements if we're in a zone. You're not just covering one person, you're covering an area. So if you can't move in the area effectively, that may be an area you need want to work on, is being able to effectively move from one position to the other. There may not be communication. Communication is a big thing. You're going to hear that a lot throughout this presentation. But you should see where the breakdowns are, and the goal is to focus on what it is. As long as you guys are having effort from all six players, including the goalie, you can run any defense. The minute that there's not effort, that might be the deficiency. So if one person doesn't do their job, the whole defense can fall apart. So the focus is where are the weaknesses, where are the areas that can improve. Maybe it's the wrong defense altogether. Maybe you need to look at a different defense. The offseason is a great time for you to be able to look at that. Offensive tactics. Again, you should be tracking these things if you have film. I'm sure you have offensive plays, whether they're 6-on-6 plays, 6-on-5 plays, after goal plays. You should know, did it work? Did it not work? Being able to understand where it worked and where it wasn't. If the play isn't looking to create a high percentage opportunity, you may need to reevaluate what play you're running. Every play you run should create a high percentage opportunity, because the goal of an offensive tactic is to score. So if that's not being created, again, going back to the drawing board and maybe changing the play, getting a new play, or tweaking what you can do with that play, is going to be effective. Shot blocking, just putting your arm up is not just what you need to do for shot blocking. There should be base, body positioning. You should actually know what you're blocking. If your goalie's yelling at you all the time when you're shot blocking, you're probably not doing things right. So again, communication with the shot blockers and actually listening and doing what the goalie tells you. For the defense to work, for us to cover what we need, you need to be in the right place, and maybe players aren't in the right place. They don't know their responsibilities. So just going back to the drawing board and figuring that out. But also just proper technique. Are we low in the water? Are we working to get up and actually be a big body to shot block? These are all things that we can focus on. Goaltending in general, it's not just did they block balls? Are they communicating? Again, that's a big thing. How is their reaction times? Do they need to do a few more reaction drills? You get the tennis balls out and start focusing on that. Is their placement cage incorrect? Are they too far back in the cage? Are they too far out in the cage? Are they susceptible to being lobbed on? Do they know how to properly defend a lob? How are their movements? Are they able to move laterally, vertically? Do they have enough leg strength to do any of this? Sometimes maybe just we need to add more jugs to the workout. We need to put weight belts on at times when we're trying to do some of these things. Um, there's a number of areas you can look at there. Shot selection. This is something that is very important. The ability to catch and shoot is huge. Every time you put the ball down in the water, the goalie gets to rest. So the ability to set up and the ability to execute a catch and shoot shot is very important for being able to get a high percentage opportunity. Are you shooting far side? I mean, it's very easy just to catch the ball and shoot it right at the goalie, but to be able to pay attention of where the goalie is, shoot it where there's space to be able to score. And again, back to, are we finding the high danger areas? You may want to score, so you're going to take a shot, but is there a better shot? Is there a higher percentage shot if you make one more pass? Thinking about those things, understanding the situations, those are areas you can look at in the off season. Again, communication. Are we communicating in the water? Usually when things break down, you should be able to at least help the situation by communicating. If you're not communicating, then you're probably not going to be able to get yourself out of bad situations. I do exercises with the team with communications. This past year, we actually had an exercise with our goalies. They weren't talking enough. So we had them do a 5-minute speech to just go over explaining a simple task to the team, and they got to pick whatever task. And they had to answer questions. They had to make sure that everybody fully understood how to do that task. And it's a simple thing, but it gets them talking, it gets them communicating, it gets them comfortable doing that. I have a lot of international players, so obviously English language barrier sometimes is an issue. So you have to take steps into trying to help that and rectify that so that everybody can be on the same page. Passing, it's not just warming your arms up. That's definitely a common misconception. Just saying, "Hey, go pass for 10 minutes and we'll get started," isn't good enough. How is our base positioning? Are we being lazy when we make the pass? Are we in a good position to make the pass? Are we accepting the pass? Is the ball smacking our hand and hitting the water? Again, all these things are very important and things you can work on. Usually when my team does passing drills, we're going to do it for like 30, 40 minutes, and we may even have weight belts. And if we're not doing it well, we're usually going to do something that'll rectify that, whether it be some fly or do something differently that we're going to make sure when we go back to passing, we do it right. So again, passing is very important. It's not just warming your arms up. All right. Making a plan. Um, the plan isn't just on the coach. Um, there should be obviously the coach should have a plan, but he should be able to have an idea of what his players are looking for in their off season. You'll see later on, we're gonna discuss about being able to do things on your own because you're not always gonna have a coach present. But everybody should have a plan going into the off season, whether it be getting stronger in the weight room, getting faster in the water, being more efficient with our movements in the water, improving our catch and shooting. Catch and shooting is very important, and that's something that a lot of coaches take for granted. But again, making a plan isn't just on the coach, but for the individual athletes. You have to have an idea of what you want to work on, and you can go over that with your coach so that the coach can implement that as well. Communication between the player and coach to be able to do that is very important. But you have to take ownership in what you're looking to do, and there needs to be a clear plan from the coach and a clear understanding from the player of what the focuses are, of what we need to improve and what we want to do well. So again, having a clear plan, and the plan may not work. We might find that out, and that's fine. We may change the plan. We can't be afraid to move from the plan if it's not working. Um, so again, self-motivation. We are not you'll say, not a sport that has a lot of funding. So coaches may not always be present. So we may have staffing issues. We may have, oh, well, the women's team or the men's team, whatever's in season is the priority. So if you are not in season, you are not the priority anymore. So you may not have a coach present because they have to focus on whatever team is in season. There's also NCAA rules with CARA rules and all that, where you're only allowed so many hours. So a lot of these things can affect when you're going to get coaches and what you can do if you don't have coaches. A good question that I like to ask is, what are you willing to do when no one's watching? It's good to work hard, when the coach is there and you're at practice and all that. But what about when you have free time and you have nothing to do? Are you going to go play a video game? Are you going to go out to the movies? Or maybe you want to get into the pool. Lots of schools, different clubs and all that have open pool times that you can go work on things. Take advantage of those times. Bring a teammate. Encourage others to join you. It always can. There's always something you can focus on, you can work on, and there's plenty of individual drills. There's plenty of partner drills. There's plenty of drills with that you don't need every single person in the pool to do. But the only consequences for not doing it is letting down yourself. So again, you have to be self motivated. I can promise you, if you want to master your craft, you have to put in the extra work, and it's not just going to be what the practice times that you have set. The best players in the world, they're putting in the work all the time. They're working on, if there's something that they're lacking, they're going to fix it. They're going to work on it. They're going to put extra reps in after practice, before practice, or even just on an off day. But again, coaches can't always enforce it. It has to be something you want to do, because again, if you do the bare minimum, you're going to get the bare minimum out of it. So again, when you start having a culture of your team where people want to put in the extra work, you're going to find out that the team is going to perform better. But that has to be something that is first comes from each person's self, and then it has to hopefully spread to the rest of the team. But again, it has to be a want. The coach can't always force you to do extra work. Um, Again, coaches need to find ways to motivate their players. Um, Challenging their players to do something, being vocal about it, giving them goals that they can set for the off season. Again, you're not always going to be able to force them to do it, but you can literally say, "Hey, I want to see if you can do this. What are you going to do to do it? We want to be better at this. We want to be better at team defense. We're running this defense and it's not working. We got to be better at it because we're not putting enough effort." Challenge them to put more effort into something. I can promise you any defense isn't going to work if you don't put effort into it. So again, if there's things that players don't want to do at practice, again, challenge them that if you did this better, we wouldn't have to do it as much, or you'll actually enjoy it more because you're putting effort into it. There's always a reason why something is being done, and it may not be something you like, but you're going to be a better player if you put the effort in. So there's also cool ways, because again, off season you may not have everybody at practice. I know with if you're in college, there's going to be exams, there's going to be things you're working on that sometimes practice has to take a back seat. So you have to be able to integrate competitions into practice. Maybe you're doing a shooting drill, and if you don't make it, you got to do 50 fly just to make sure you don't do it the next time. Or the person that makes the most gets a drink at the end of practice, or gets a piece of cake or something. I don't know, but there's just different things. Find ways to make competition happen, and it should be organic. Everybody should want to compete for their time, for their position, for their team. But sometimes you have to find creative ways to create competition, um, especially if you're having a culture where the off season is not that important. If you have games, not everybody has games in the offseason, but if you do have games, some players think that, oh, I just need to show up for the games. Practice doesn't matter. It's the offseason. It doesn't. So put a list of requirements they need to do to be able to go to the games. There's teammates that are coming to practice every day, working hard. And if some aren't doing it, then they shouldn't get to go to the games. And that'll maybe start getting people to want to work hard so they can go to the games. Um, there is no reason to worry about if you win or lose games in the off season. So it's all about getting people to play better. The guys that want to work should get the most time to work on themselves. If guys don't want to show up and don't want to put the work in, they shouldn't earn time that they don't deserve. So again, you have to start that in the team culture. You have to make sure that everybody's on board with it. But it all has to start with the coach being consistent with it as well. So again, putting requirements for them is very important. Um, but yeah, there's different ways that you can figure out what motivates your team. Some things that I like to do is I like to do surveys with the team, and it'll just go over like, hey, what do you see in a leader of how they motivate you? Like, is it more vocal? Is it more seeing someone work hard, or what? Knowing these things and being able to Ask certain questions, and if you do it in a survey, most people aren't afraid to answer it because it's going to be anonymous. So I take a poll of the team. I see where the whole team as a whole sees themselves, what the team is looking for, what motivates them, and utilizing that to try to implicate how to motivate them. It's not going to be the same every year, and it may not even be the same week to week. So being able to constantly check in on this, have a pulse on your team for what's motivating them is definitely important because as you meet some goals, you may need to find different ways to motivate them to meet the next goals. And the same way that you used to do it may not be the same thing. Don't be afraid to change things up. The same old thing gets very boring at times, and sometimes that demotivates players. So keeping things new, keeping things fresh, and again, just keeping an eye on where everybody's headspace is at, and again, just doing some surveys, asking questions, figuring out where their mindset is isn't a bad way to do that, just to kind of get an idea of where everybody's at. Fundraising is a good activity to do, especially in the off season. It's a good way to bring the team together. Water polo is not a revenue sport, so fundraising allows us to do a lot of things. Most teams don't have big budgets for off season. So again, if you want to go to games, if you need more new equipment to train, sometimes it helps paying coaching staff so that we don't have times that everybody's got to practice on their own and run captains practices. So fundraising is a good way to put that together. It's good for team bonding as well. But just the mindset of wanting to work for something is good for team culture. So you have to, it's not going to happen overnight, and you have to constantly create opportunities for them to continually to do it. But I think that the players are going to respect the things that they've earned, whether they bought new equipment, they bought a new goal, or they fundraised to go on a trip that they really wanted to go to. I think they're going to respect a lot of the things more if they work to get it than if they just get it handed to them just because they think they deserve it. So again, I think it also helps the team culture as well as helps, being able to fund the different things you need, because everybody's got a budget and most budgets aren't growing. They're usually getting smaller. So fundraising is a great thing to do in the off season. Again, putting a plan together, getting the team bought into it is very important. Putting goals together of what we need. Hey, you want to do this? We have to earn this. There's different things you can do. You can sell T-shirts. You can do car washes. My team goes and runs security at the WVU football games and basketball games. So just things like that is great opportunities, and they're going to be doing it together. So it brings them together, working for something. They all got a common goal. So that also helps with team unity as well. Uh, so scheduling games. Again, not everybody has games, and that's okay. Your off season is always built differently. But as your team starts to grow and you want to be more competitive and you have the ability to do that, and again, you're fundraising, you're putting things together and able to do the different things, creating opportunities through games is big. The beauty of games in the off season is there's no consequences if you fail. Um, the records, if you go undefeated in the off season or you go winless in the off season, that's not how you judge how your off season goes. Again, the focus on off season is making sure we're improving ourselves, making sure we're doing the things we need to work on things that we failed in the regular season for, or we didn't do as well. But even stuff we did well, we can always improve. But there's no consequences. You can try new offenses, try new defenses. There's always new things that are out there. You may have seen at a tournament a team run some defense that you're like, wow, that really worked. I wonder if we could do it. Off season is a great time to implement that, to work on it. And then if you play games, you can try to actually do it against other teams and see how it works. Try new things. There's always new rules that are coming through. So off-season scheduling games, sometimes you have tournaments that are going to early adapt the rules just so that everybody gets a chance to see how it works. The zero line this year has been big, but it really adds a whole new dimension to the sport. And if you're not prepared to do it, then it's going to be hard. And teams that are prepared to do it are going to be able to do it well. And you're not going to be able to catch up unless you start working on it. So the off season is a good time to start working on new rules, new tactics, and different things. It's also a way for players that felt they didn't get enough time in the fall or the spring, whatever their main season is to show why they should get more time. But it's also going to build chemistry, because you're going to have some players that didn't play a lot with players that did, and now maybe you find that they're going to work better together. It's going to build confidence in the ones that need it, and it's basically just gives you a chance to see what you're working with. Anytime you have opportunities to play, you don't want to waste it. Um, but an athlete should go into off-season games and they should try to challenge themselves. They should try to prove they should have more playing time in the future, and they should not be afraid to try new things. There's no risk if something doesn't work. So if you have these opportunities against whether it's either light competition, easy competition, or harder competition, you need to make sure you're preparing yourself to do that. But you have to read where your team is. If you're not ready for a really hard off-season schedule, that may not be the right route. But I do believe that every year you should start challenging yourself. You should start finding new opportunities. If you can get harder schedule as your team develops and grows, I think that is always going to be better, because if you can do the things you're working on against harder teams, it's better. But your team might not be there. And if your team wants to be, well, we want to have fun and we want to do this, and that's okay too. But you may want to go to a tournament that's not going to have, very difficult, because then it's going to be you're not going to get much out of it, because they're not going to be prepared, they're not going to be motivated, and they're not going to be ready to lose games really, really bad if they're not ready for that. But you also have to paint the picture for your team of what you're trying to accomplish. And if you've given a clear goal of what your off season is going to be, you can make a hard schedule, even if your team's not ready for it. If you're trying to test how they do. And again, employing that it doesn't matter about the score. It matters how we improve, how we deal with adversity, how we do that. If you're gearing it that way, that's a great way to do it. But yeah, you have to gauge where your team is on what you're going to do there. But games are definitely important, but you can still have an off season without games. You can have inter squad scrimmages. Again, productive practices are just as good as playing games, as long as they're being done the right way. So always be looking, engaging what you've done. What did you do last season? Don't be afraid to change what you did. Did it work? Did it not work? There may be some things that did work. There may be some things that didn't work. But you can't be afraid to change if you want to try to get something to be different and improve. There's always new ways to do things. You want to challenge your team anytime you can, but don't be afraid to fail either. I've coached a very long time. I failed many times. So I mean, you shouldn't ever be afraid to fail. Go to camps, go to clinics, learn new things, listen to different podcasts like this. I'm not an expert. I never will pretend to be. I've been doing this for 15 years and I have made a lot of mistakes. So I've tried to do well at learning from mistakes, but you can never be afraid to fail. You can't, you got to know that you don't know everything, and you always got to be willing to learn. So, I mean, basically, as long as you can have a clear plan of what you're doing for the off season, and your team buys into it. And sometimes you need to find out what they want to buy into. So gauging where they're at to be able to do that is important. But yeah, my biggest thing is always look to improve somewhere. There's always different things you can do to improve. That's about all I got. I don't know if we have any questions.
Yeah, I got a couple for you. When you say planning for your season or your off season, how specific do you usually plan? Are you thinking like down to what you're doing weekly, general goals?
I think no matter what, whether you're in off season or in season, you should always have a plan for the week. I usually like to focus on no more than three things. I think once you start focusing on more than three things, you start putting too much information out there. There definitely is information overload when dealing with trying to get a team to be on the same page. So keeping things simple, focusing on, not a wide variety of things, but three things that can help us play better that week. And then basically going through those three things. And usually, again, if you can play games, you can find out, are we better in any of these three things? And as we start to do the things right that we want to work on, you can add a different thing in place of one of those three things. But I think not over stimulating and giving too much information is good, especially as you're trying to improve and build. But I think keeping every week set up, we're focusing on this. Every practice needs to be geared towards this and should be planned that way.
So would you say to plan it out like the week before? Like how far in advance? Are you talking like plan the whole semester out, like this week, this week, this
You
week?
you're gonna have a plan for what you're gonna do for the off season. You'll have a list of things, but you also have a week to week plan as well. So you have to be ready to change the plan. So again, you want to have a main idea for what you want from the season, but every week based on how they perform and how they do, how are they growing with the things you want them to do before you can fully do the giant big picture plan. So every week should have a plan, but you should have a bigger picture plan for the whole entire season as well.
Another question I had for you was you mentioned like communication a lot and you mentioned having everyone on the same page. With with like our club ranks, you have people there who just want a social aspect. You want people who are
Mm-hmm.
there who are like, I want to win, I want to go to nationals, I want to do
Yeah.
amazing. Do you have any tips on kind of branching that gap and getting everyone on the same page?
Again, I think surveys are really good. Getting an idea of where your team goals are. Again, if their goal is to just have fun and get better at water polo, and they don't want to, they don't want to try to go win the conference or go to nationals and all that, then that's where your team's at. And you have to. The only way you're going to motivate them is to do the things they want to do. So finding out what the collective of the team wants to do is important to be able to gauge that. I can tell you that after not making the championship game with my team last year, we one of the big goals was we want to win the champ. We want to go to the championship game. We want to win it. And I would remind them that every day, like, you guys all said this is what you wanted, so we need to act like it. We need to work for it. If that wasn't what they wanted, then there's no reason for me to be reminding them that, pushing them that. The coach controls the culture to a point, but the team really controls the culture, and the coach has to gauge where the team's head at is for what they want.
Awesome. While I have you on here, do you have any recruiting tips
For recruits or for coaches?
for recruits?
For recruits, I say you should make sure you find a school that has the major you want. You can't gauge what school you want to go to solely off of I want to go play for that team. If they don't have the major you want, fortunately, there's not a lot of professional water polo opportunities out there, and you do need to go into the professional world at some place. There's plenty of schools that have water polo. So find the school that has the major you want, and there may be a list of them. And if it's a club team, if it's a varsity team, they usually either have a team leader or they have a coach. And send an email to them. I can guarantee you that most coaches have no problem responding back if you actively reach out to them. Do your research on the school though. Don't send a mass email to the same coach that you're sending to another school and you forget to put the coach's name in it. You put the wrong coach's name, or you put the other school's name in the email. Like, try to find something like, hey, I saw your season last year. You did good that weekend during some tournament, or hey, I noticed that the school's bringing on this major. It really intrigues me, and I saw you guys. Like, find something particular to the school so it shows that you're actually interested and you're not just throwing stuff out there just to throw out there. So um, everything's online. You can go check anything on websites. So just do your research but make sure you know the majors. When a kid reaches out to me and says, "Hey, I really want to go to school," and I'm like, "Hey, what major do you want?" They say a major we don't have. Just like, you could have looked before even you answered the email. Like, you could have just went and checked and be like, "Oh, they don't have my major. Well, never mind." So you don't want to waste the coach's time or the team leader's time, and you don't want to waste your own time. So do your research, find the right fit academically, and then decide after that what school would be good for you for athletic.
That's awesome. And then any tips for the coaches side?
Coaches side, if your program is new, it's not going to be an overnight thing. So keep grinding. Hopefully, you can get help from other coaches as you're going through. I know when I started here at Salem, I only had a couple players that could actually play. So we didn't win a game for a very long time, and we just had to keep recruiting every year, keep trying to bring in the right kids, keep trying to keep the guys focused and all that. But there's usually not a lot of overnight successes because there's not a lot of money in our sport. So you're not going to throw money just to go get kids. You gotta start building a culture, and it's not always about winning. It's about how you're handling yourself, how you're getting things going. So the wins are great, but you gotta have a foundation for that, and sometimes taking bad seasons and learning from them and growing from them is even better than winning right away.
Like I said, unless you have any like specific drills or workouts that you suggest do off during the off season. Um,
Honestly, any drill or workout that the kids are putting effort in, I'm all for. You can put whatever drill you want to, but if people are just walking through the drills and not actually going through them with effort, there's almost no point doing it. So, I mean, I like to see effort at practice. If there's not effort at practice, we're going to do something that's going to motivate effort. That's usually not fun. So, that's kind of my feeling. If you're going to do it with effort. You may not agree with it. You may not like it. You may think it's stupid, but you're not going to get anything out of it